So how many of you heard of Natick before, the Natick database? By show of hands. All right, how many of you heard of Caesar? Couple more. All right. So Natick was, it was a study that was done back in the 80s. They measured military, from the U.S. military, Army individuals, length of arms, length of torso, basically any body dimension you can think of, they measured it. And as part of that, let me start this here. They then created percentile tables and so forth. It was the most comprehensive database that they had available, and it had several thousand, I want to say almost 8,000 people. They've now since come and updated that. There's a Natick 2014 that was published, and that actually included what's called the National Reserve soldiers in the United States, which are soldiers that are kind of civilians and during the week, and then on the weekend they go to do training, and so some of them aren't necessarily so fit. And so it's a little bit better representation of the civilian population, but it's still military and therefore they're pretty fit. The Caesar data set was done in the 1990s by Kathleen Robinette and her team. And what they did is they found people in malls and paid them to put on some spandex, shirts and pants and bras, and basically did a three-dimensional scan and then did different anthropometric measurements of them. So part of waking you up, I was going to ask each one of you, pound by pound, all those that are 110, please stand up, but I won't do that. But at least I have your attention now, right? But what happens if you look at these individuals, let's just take this group of 200 pound, 90 kilos. Their heights range here on the far right are the shortest individuals are basically about, I don't know if you want to do metric or English, but they're essentially 5 foot tall, 60 inches. And on the far left, the tallest males there are about 6'6", or as you see they're almost 2,000 millimeters. So if you look at the body dimensions, there's quite a variety in just the 200-pound range of individuals. And I have pictures of these going from 110 pounds all the way up to 350, that there's this big spectrum. So just being able to accommodate people with one standard, or looking at a standard and being able to say, yeah, this is going to fit everyone, or making one chair or even sometimes one table fit everyone that you want to fit, it may not work that way. So I think that's, to me, one of the things to take away from this industry panel discussion is Lucy went through basically some of these pieces of standards that we have and databases that we've used, but a lot of times it comes down to the practical application of it. That maybe your population is over here on the left-hand side. So the products that you purchase may not need to fit the full range of what you're doing. Or maybe you have a large facility in China, and you're going to have people more in kind of this smaller range right here, because the Asian population in general is a shorter, smaller population. So you have to look at the standards as a good guideline, but then you may need to take some application for yourself and for your own company as to what you need to apply. It's not just going through and check marking that I've met all that range of dimensions, because it may not necessarily apply to the group at your company. Lucy and I have sat on standard committees together. If you think that reading standards will put you to sleep pretty well, I think being on a standards committee will do even better for you. And on top of that, being in charge of a standards committee is even more opportunity to fall asleep. I actually chair the Human Factors and Ergonomics research, Human Factors and Ergonomics 100 rewrite for the furniture measurements. So we're working right now, we've been working on this for almost 6 years, trying to look at the latest database of Caesar and understanding the best statistical method to figure it out. How many of you are familiar with percentiles? Okay, I would expect most everyone here understands what a percentile is. So you're looking at the spectrum from kind of the smallest female or male up to the largest male or female. But we look kind of to like the 5th percent, and everyone that's smaller than the 5th percent, we say, forget you, we don't care about you. And everyone's that's bigger than the 95th, we just say, forget you too, we don't care about you. So we look at kind of that 90 percentile of people. Well, there's some challenges that come with doing that method, because you're getting rid of some people that when you're looking at just seat height, maybe when I'm sitting down, I might be 5th percentile, but when I'm looking at elbow height for where my desk needs to be, I may be at 50 percentile, because I might have a short upper arm, and so they're up higher. So we're not all 5th percentile or 10th percentile or 95th percentile people with all of our appendages. And so there's a couple other statistical methods that we're investigating as a committee to kind of see what's the best way to interpret this. And so we're looking at 2 other areas, one called virtual fit test, which is essentially taking, all right, here's a subject, let's see how many things to get accommodated, their seat width, their seat height, their armrest length, and trying to accommodate as many as we can by looking at the population. And then the third type of analysis we're looking at is what's called cases. It's a big black box of statistics that I'm not going to take you through, but essentially the idea is if you put people on a scatter plot, you could create kind of an oval shape, or if it's doing 3 dimensions, kind of the looks like a rugby ball or a football, American football. And you pick people along the borders of that would represent actual people. So you would essentially, if I went back to this image, let's say that these would be the people that are on that border. I can take dimensions from each one of these people, from their sitting posture, their standing posture, their elbow height, and I can use those to create my standard. And it would be the spectrum of people that would go kind of from the 5th to the 95th, but it's using what we call cases or examples. So that's some of the work that we're doing. BIFMA was doing some of that too, so it's all the standards groups are trying to come together to at least have something that works rather than competes with each other. And another part that industry works in is we have a group that's called the Office Ergonomics Research Committee. And this is a consortium of companies that include furniture companies, computer companies, and practitioners. And essentially what they do is they pool money to do research. They say, here's some priorities we have. It started back in the 1990s because these companies wanted to understand what do we need to know about office ergonomics? What research isn't being done, and can we pool some money to create some good research? And so if any of you have companies that might be interested in being a part of this group, we're always looking for members to be a part of it. Please talk to me. But I wanted to point out one of the studies that we funded because we were concerned that, as has been talked about, the research on sit-stand desks has lagged behind where the market has gone. The sitting is killing you frenzy swung that pendulum, as BlackBerry showed the pendulum, to everyone needs to sit to stand desk kind of feeling. But there's a lot of research that we still don't know the answers to, and some of that has been pointed out. What's the correct ratio of sit to stand? We don't know the answers to those yet because the research has lagged behind. One of those parts is, how do you set up a standing workstation? There isn't a good guideline out there to say, here's how it should be done. The standards, the HFES and the BIFMA, they use dimensions of, if I'm standing with my elbow height at a right angle, what's that height? And then my monitor, we actually don't even talk much about the distance that the monitor goes, but we do talk about the height based on my eye height. when I'm sitting and also when I'm standing. That's where maybe the top of the monitor should be. So we have kind of those dimensions that are there, but we still don't understand a lot about where does the keyboard go, where does the mouse go, how far away should that monitor be, what angle might it be best at. So the OERC commissioned a study done by Michael Lynn and two others, Catalano and Jack Dennerlein at Harvard. And what they looked at was what we call psychophysical protocol. They wanted to see if they put a keyboard, a monitor, and a mouse in front of someone with a sit-to-stand desk, and we moved it to an extreme location, maybe down here, and they had to go back and adjust it, where would they put it when they're sitting and when they're standing? And so they ran through 20 different adults, males and females, evenly mixed there, and they observed after they adjusted it, misadjusted it, where do they put it? And then they took measurements. And they did it over 4 different sessions, 2 standing, 2 sitting, and 4 times or 3 times during that testing they put it at some extreme. So they expected that over time, if someone's going to move the monitor to a different location that's extreme, I'm going to put it back pretty much to the same spot that second, that third, and that 4th time. There's not going to be a lot of variation. So that's what they hoped. And then they also hoped to be able to find differences between sitting location and standing location. And so what they found was when someone's standing, the keyboard is actually closer to the body. So they found that people were placing the keyboard closer to the edge of the desk, closer to their sternum. The desk height was also lower than the elbow height. So, you know, we do the standard by people putting their arms at 90 degrees. They were finding that people were actually lowering the desk lower than that 90-degree angle, which could, or maybe, there's some opportunities to understand a little bit more. You may be putting more pressure on this area, the carpal tunnel kind of area on your wrist, if you're resting all your weight there rather than using the table as a forearm rest. But they also found the monitor was lower than eye height level, and people actually tilted it so that it was actually about I think it was an 8-degree angle facing up toward them. And that was different than when they were sitting down. The monitor was actually higher than that. It was more vertical to them. So those were some new things that they saw. So it begs the question, should we make some changes, or when we do our standards, do we need to keep it so that it's always at this 90-degree angle, or do we modify that? I think as you walk around your offices, you see plenty of people that aren't sitting in that 90 position, right? And I would actually hope that they aren't. Most of the time they should be reclined, they should be moving to different positions. But those are some different considerations. Additionally, I wanted to kind of point out some other ones. The first one there was basically, should we have a different protocol set up for sitting versus standing? Some of these have also been talked about. As we look at sit to stand, what about social aspects of sitting and standing? So if I'm in a pod with 4 different people that all have height adjustable tables, and we're all sitting, and all of a sudden I say, you know what, I want to stand up. Now all of a sudden I'm standing next to Lucy, who's sitting down at her height adjustable table. Is she going to be uncomfortable because I can now maybe see her screen a little bit better? And will she start standing up? Are there social implications of one person standing, or others going to stand too? Or as mentioned earlier, sometimes my privacy of my screen being above the walls and panels now can be visible by other people. Cognitively, are there other aspects of sit to stand? Are there people that are giving me permission within my management to say it's okay to stand, or are they saying no, you can't? Because if you're standing, you're not working, or you're being lazy, or some other thing, you're not being productive. So there may be cognitive effects that are causing me not to want to stand. And then other considerations too are how can technology help us? There are now a lot of opportunities we have with Fitbits and the Apple Watch and other types of pieces of technology that can track our posture. And now there are also furniture pieces with sit-to-stand desks that allow us to integrate different sensors within the desk to understand how many times have I moved this up and down, what height is it at, how long have I been standing at that desk, which can then allow facilities groups to say, we're using these as much as we wanted to, or hey, this zone over here in accounting, they're not using their sit-to-stand desk. We need to maybe train them or take it away from them or whatever the case might be, right? But there's opportunities also looking at that technology of how do reminders or nudges come into play to be able to help people look at using them more often. Kind of looking at the study Jack did after 6 months, it decreased in the amount of usage of that sit-to-stand, but if we were to remind people on a regular basis, could that increase? So that's kind of taking it from the standard side and looking a little bit more at the practical side, and I think Damien's going to take it beyond that and go a little bit more into that area. Thank you.